Welcome to The Romantic Side of Suspense with Sarah Hemmerker. In each episode, she'll talk with your favorite romantic suspense authors. They will take you behind the scenes of the writing process, giving excerpts from their writing, and share stories about their writing life.
The Lone Rice Ball by Camy Tang. Mimi Sake came to Hawaii for Christmas, not to help with an undercover investigation, or fall for Tosh Kusunoki, the boy she once hurt. As secrets surface and old regrets linger, Mimi wonders if God could still write a love story for her, even in paradise. While visiting family in Hawaii, Mimi Sake unexpectedly finds herself tangled in a drug ring investigation led by Tosh, a security consultant, and the boy she once betrayed. As Mimi wrestles with the mistakes of her past and the person she longs to become, could she find both redemption and a Christmas romance in paradise?
On this episode of The Romantic Side of Suspense, my guest is Camy Tang, who is a USA Today bestselling author of Christian Romantic Suspense. And she also writes Christian Regency Romantic Suspense under the pen name Camille Elliott. So welcome to my show, Camy.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I love that you write Christian Regency Romantic Suspense and contemporary romantic suspense. So how do you keep those two worlds separate in your brain? This is just a question that I'm just dying to know.
So I tend to batch things. So I will usually focus only on one book and write one book at a time. Like I'll write a Regency Romantic Suspense, then I'll spend another couple months writing the contemporary, and then I'll switch back to Regency. It's also partly because sometimes I might get a little bored if I just write contemporary all the time or Regency all the time. So it's kind of nice to switch back and forth sometimes. But yeah, that's basically what I do. I focus on one book at a time.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad to know that you do keep your sanity somehow. Definitely. So, but when do you find time to write, though? I mean, so like I said, it's a lot of books to write in general. So when is your writing time?
So I'm really lucky. I am able to write full time. So I stay at home to write, and I use my best writing time is usually right after I get up in the mornings, which I was totally shocked by because I am a complete night owl. I really always expected that my best writing time would be at night, but I started testing different times and found that I actually write fastest and the most if I can write about an hour or two after I get up in the morning. So that's usually when I will do my writing. Lately, I've been doing a lot of dictation because I was having some wrist problems with my right wrist. I've had problems for a long time, but lately they were getting worse. So I started doing dictation, and I found that it was really hard at first to get into the dictation, but after I kind of got used to it, I found myself writing at least at the same speed as I was when I was typing, and sometimes even faster. And that's taking into the dictation time and the cleanup time afterwards. And so the past several books I've written with dictation. So I'll usually take, a couple hours in the morning to dictate. And I'm trying to kind of be able to have the discipline to have another writing session in the afternoon, but I haven't been able to do that consistently yet.
Oh, yeah. I used to write first thing in the morning, but now I have a day job, so now I have to train myself to write, when I get home a few hours, maybe 30, 40 minutes before dinner, and then 30, 40 minutes or more if I can manage it after dinner. And that's been a real change for me because I'm like you. I love the early morning. I'm not a night owl, but I still love the first thing with my cup of tea, sitting there, pounding out the words. But, I think sometimes we have to write when we have the time. And
Yeah. When I was working as a biologist researcher, I would mostly write at night. Which is why I always thought that, since I'm such a night owl, I always thought my best writing time would be at night. But when I quit biology work to write full-time, I found out my best writing was usually in the morning instead.
Well, sometimes I think that just shows that you were best writing was in the evening because that's when you had the time to write.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you were at work in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's always interesting, and it's good that you tested it, because I think so many writers or people who aspire to be writers, they just kind of they were like you. They're like, well, I'm a night owl, so it must be in the evening. They don't really test out when is a good time to write, and I think that's smart to do, so that you know. But also, sometimes in seasons of life, we have to be flexible and write when maybe we aren't our freshest. Because again, I'm surprised that I can be get as many words down in the mid-afternoon, late afternoon, early evening, because that was never my favorite time to write. But now it has to be, and I'm like, yeah, I can make this work for now.
I think if we love the writing, we always find time to write just because we love it. Even if we're not our freshest, we'll still do it just because we love doing it,
Yeah, definitely. So do you have a go-to when you need to pick me up to keep writing? Is there something that you do or drink or have or eat?
So when I dictate, I am usually walking, and I do this deliberately because I'm so easily distracted. If I stay home and dictate, a lot of times I'll just be distracted by other thoughts or other things I need to do, and so I go out walking specifically so that I have nothing else to do except write, and that helps me just keep writing for the full hour that I'm out. So I don't know if it's necessarily a pick-me-up, but it definitely keeps me writing. But then I really hate self-editing. It's a fatal personality flaw. And so what I'll do is I'll walk to the local Starbucks and I'll pick up a fruity drink, and then I'll sit there on the patio and I'll edit for an hour with my fruity drink, and it kind of forces me to edit and have my fruity drink. The fruity drink is my bride, and I'll sit there and I'll edit with my drink.
Well, we have to do what we have to do to get us over the parts of the writing that we don't love, because I don't know any author who loves every single aspect of it. There's parts where we're like, ugh, I can't believe I have to do this. I think with so we have to self-bribe ourselves, little rewards. If I do this, then this can happen. I mean, that's the way we get things done. And I think that's great. Now that you know, and you know what you need, and hey, you've been walking for an hour, so you deserve that fruity drink.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, come on, let's reward ourselves. We, get that fruity drink. You've been walking a while, so. So did you always want to be a writer, or what else did you want to be as a kid, and did that dream come true?
I didn't always want to be a writer, but then I think I was maybe 12 or 13, maybe 14. I don't remember exactly when. I read, I've always loved reading fantasy novels, and I read Dragon Song and Dragon Singer by Anne McCaffrey. I love those books so much that it inspired me to start writing my own stories. And so after that, then I wrote my first novel, which was this huge, long fantasy story that was like completely awful. And after that, I told my mom, I want to be a writer. And to her credit, she did not tell me, well, you're not going to make a lot of money with writing, and you're probably going to need a day job. And she didn't say that. She said, okay, just work hard. So I guess I've wanted to be a writer since my teens.
Yeah, and here you are. We won't ask how old you are, but here you are, some years later, fulfilling that dream. I love that. What about one of your favorite ways to connect with readers? How do you like to connect with readers?
So I have a blog, and when blogs were super popular, people would comment on my blog, and that would be really fun. And then everyone was on Facebook, and so I was on Facebook too, but I just never seemed to find a lot. Like, the Facebook algorithms were such that it was really hard for my readers to actually find my posts. So I started a Patreon, and people can join for free, or you can subscribe. My lowest tier is like $5 a month. And I love it because I can post like bonus extras about my books. Like recently I posted like a little article about corsets from the Regency and how my heroine could actually, sew a knife sheath onto her corset. And I went through this whole logical argument of how she could totally do that. And I posted pictures and everything. That was really fun. I also post like deleted scenes, like scenes that I wrote, but then I said, no, and then I go a different direction. So I post the deleted scenes on my Patreon. I've posted like bonus AI images that I generate for my chapters. And then also my subscribers get to read the chapters as I write them too, so they get to read the next book early. And I love Patreon because people, it's really easy to comment. I get notifications whenever somebody comments, so there's no chance of like losing it on the Facebook notification, tab. And it's really nice. The people on my Patreon, they all are there because they really like my writing. So, they're guaranteed to be notified every time I post a bonus extra post or something like that. So, yeah, that's my Patreon lately has been my favorite way to connect with my readers.
Oh, I love that. And it's nice that you're able to use some of that information that maybe would have gone to waste, deleted scenes, your thought process, any images you may have, and be able to use those. Again, I'm a big fan, Camy, of reusing information. If we have it, and we should use it. Why let it go to waste? That's just like, we work hard. We shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel and stuff. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, come on, deleted scenes are great. The research is great. Yeah.
I love posting like research because it's like, you go through all this effort to figure out, okay, can they do this, in this time period, or, all the research you have to do, whether you're writing contemporary or historical, you have to do some kind of research. And so because I had to look all this stuff up, it's really fun to post, okay, here's pictures that I found, and here's the information I found out about this, and blah blah blah. And readers like that kind of like little extra stuff that's going on, and so yeah, I really like that.
I love it. So what about the location or setting of your romantic suspense novels? How do you decide where you set them?
So when I was writing for Love Inspired, my first book was set in California, and so all the other books I wrote for them were all set in California, where I live, in Northern California. When I went indie, I decided, I'm going to write in Hawaii because that's I grew up there. I go back there once a year to see my parents, and I had never written a series in Hawaii. So my latest series is the Mahina Security series, and that's set in Hawaii on the North Shore, which is where my grandma used to live. But for the Regencies, I love England. Oh my gosh, I would love to go there and just like live there for a few months. That would just be my dream. And I've gone there for a couple times on vacation, and so I set that series in Regency London in the year 1811. They go out to the countryside a little bit sometimes too, but it's mostly set in London. And I have most of the action set in some of the areas that we kind of visited when we were touring the city and stuff. And so that was really fun.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would love to live in. I don't have any of my books set there, but I still love to live there for a few months. just let me be an honorary person over here, and just a resident, and just live there. And I would write. I would do something productive, right, with my time. Yeah. Well, we are almost out of time for our interview, so let's close with which one of your books is your favorite and why?
This is really bad. This is like asking which of your children is your favorite. And
yep, it is.
You can't really say which of your children is your favorite. But I have to say, I really enjoy The Lone Rice Ball because the heroine she was a minor character in my Sushi series, which was contemporary romance. It didn't have any suspense. But then I moved to writing romantic suspense with Love Inspired and with Zondervan, and I haven't really written straight contemporary romance in a long time. I wanted to do her love story, but I didn't want it to be just a straight romance, and I also wanted to set the book in Hawaii. So I, transplanted her to Hawaii, and it was just really fun writing this book in Hawaii. This was the first book I'd written in Hawaii, and it was just wonderful being able to place her in these in Haleiwa, which is where I visited my grandma every week. Taking her to all these different places in Honolulu, Ala Moana Center, which is like a wonderful shopping mall, and just I loved being able to write about Hawaii. It's kind of my love letter to Hawaii. So, and this is The Lone Rice Ball. It came out in November, and that was probably my favorite, just because I loved the character because she had been a minor character in her previous series, but I also loved the setting. So it's kind of like a mix of two fun things for me.
Ah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our chat today. So thanks for being on my show, Camy.
Thank you so much for having me.
And now an excerpt from The Lone Rice Ball by Camy Tang. At least the food was good. Mimi tried not to look as though she were suffering quite so much as she clapped with the rest of the wedding guests. On the dance floor in the front of the Chinese restaurant, the bride and groom cut the wedding cake. For once, her family didn't dominate the guest list, since the groom had nearly as many relatives on his side. They had reserved the entire restaurant for the wedding, but the round tables were still packed closely together, making it difficult for waiters to maneuver around and deliver the food. The next course, a platter of steamed sea bass, was finally delivered to the table with a thunk as the waiter rushed away with another plate for another table. "Yay!" Lex cheered as she served herself some of the fish. Her seat was nearest to the narrow aisle, so most of the food was placed in front of her. Lex's ginormous appetite had tapered in her mid-40s, so she didn't take half the platter as she would have a few years ago. She moved the lazy Susan toward Mimi on her left. Mimi took a small serving and moved it toward Venus on her left. "The seafood has been really good so far." Venus served herself some fish. "This restaurant is known for good seafood," her husband Drake said. On Drake's left, Jen's eyes practically had stars in them as she stared at the fish, impatient for it to move the few inches to bring it in front of her. "I was reading that of all the Chinese restaurants in Milpitas, this ranked number 1 for fish and crustacean dishes," she said. "I've been waiting for the fish dish." "You said that about the shrimp dish," her husband Edward said. "And the clams," Trish added, seated on Edward's left. "And clams aren't crustaceans." Spencer jabbed his wife with an elbow. "Cut your cousin some slack, especially because I distinctly remember you saying a few weeks ago that you might actually look forward to this wedding because the reception was being held in this restaurant." Mimi hadn't been looking forward to the wedding, but she also hadn't been dreading it like a triple root canal. She had begged the bride's mother, her Aunt Noriko, to seat her with her cousins rather than trying to shove her at a table filled with other singles. After Jen married, Mimi was the oldest single female cousin in the Sakai clan, and she had held the title for many years now. She had gone to more weddings as the OSFC than the other 4 cousins combined. Mimi had been mostly ignoring the MC, partly because the acoustics in the restaurant were terrible, with the wedding guest conversations drowning out the speakers. But naturally she would pick up the 2 words she hated most in all the world: bouquet toss. Mimi's hands clenched the side of her padded seat. For the last 3 weddings, she'd aimed straight for the restaurant bathroom like a rocket, conveniently missing the bouquet toss. But her mother had called her last night specifically to tell her that under no circumstances was she allowed to miss another bouquet toss. Mimi told herself that she no longer lived with her mother. She was 38 years old and had no obligation to obey a parental order that was obviously cruel and unusual punishment. On the flip side, the last time she had annoyed her mom, she had been given the silent treatment for 2 solid months, and it had been excruciatingly uncomfortable for her whenever she went home for a family dinner, which usually happened once a month. Mimi had finally been the one to give up and apologize and admit that yes, her mom's donburi was 10 times better than Jen's, which was so obviously untrue that Mimi worried a bolt of lightning would strike her down for telling such a blatant lie. So she sat there, forcing herself to keep to her seat. She wasn't about to jump up and head to the dance floor, but if they spotted her and called her name, she was resolved to trudge up to participate. Mimi sighed, ready to give in to the inevitable, when she happened to catch Trish's eye. Trish casually stood up, moving around to the back of the seat even though there was hardly any room in between her chair and the table next to it. She leaned back against the chair and crossed her arms. Mimi was about to ask her what she was doing when she realized that Trish very neatly screened her from the sight of the MC at the front of the restaurant. The next second, Venus followed suit, urging Spencer and Drake to do the same. Lex took a little longer to notice, blinking at them in confusion before exclaiming, "Oh!" She leaped up and hauled Aiden from his seat, making him drop the piece of fish that he was carrying to his mouth. Soon there was a wall in front of Mimi. To anyone else, it would look as though the cousins were simply standing to get a better view of the bouquet toss. Venus suddenly moved out of place and instead planted herself directly beside Mimi, although still facing the dance floor. She made a hand motion to Drake, and the cousins shifted to fill in the gap. "Why'd you do that?" Mimi asked. "Aunt Miko was sitting over there, and she was looking our way," Venus said coolly. While Mimi was grateful that Venus had thought to screen her from Aunt Miko, her proximity to Mimi's chair put her shapely rump right next to Mimi's face. Venus's discipline had ensured that she kept her hourglass figure even into her 40s, which Mimi envied since her own metabolism had started to slow down in her 30s. "You don't have to do this," Mimi said to Venus's backside. "I could have gone to the bathroom."
Thanks for listening to The Romantic Side of Suspense with Sarah Hammerker. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. You can sign up to receive notifications of upcoming podcasts and listen to previous editions at sarahhammerkerfiction.com.